I have 600 mastery on everything, the maximum amount of most materials, and 1 billion money and almost 900,000 fragments. Now you might be thinking, well, you don't touch grass, which I guess is true. But I got most of this stuff by AFKing. So in this video I'll be showing you how to AFK basically everything that can be AFK'd. So, let's begin. Alright, so the first two weapons you can AFK farm mastery are fighting styles and swords. These two weapons are very easy to AFK. I doubt you even need a guide for them, but here it is. There are two ways you can AFK farm mastery on these weapons. Well, actually there's three, but it's very inefficient. It's better for farming gun mastery. The first method is using a Logia fruit, as they provide immunity to enemy attacks after you reach a certain level against enemies who don't have hockey. If your enemies have black hands like this, it means they have hockey. This method is pretty self-explanatory. Just go to the highest leveled NPC who you are immune to. The higher level they are, the more mastery obviously. This specific NPC spawns right here, so I'm gonna stand where he spawns, and let the auto-clicker do the work till I'm back from being AFK. If you're above the level of 2213, the ice cream chefs are the highest leveled NPC that don't have aura, so yeah. You can also use the chopped fruit instead of a Logia fruit to be immune against sword attacks regardless of hockey. The highest leveled NPC is Cake Guards, level 2321 plus for immunity. Now the second method is also pretty self-explanatory. Just transform into Buddha, get an auto-clicker and go to a spot where you can kill enemies before they can hit you. I prefer this spot at the Haunted Castle. You can hit two enemies at once and you can get bones, which can be used to spawn the Soul Reaper boss and get fragments. So yeah, these were the two methods I used to grind 600 mastery on every single fighting style and sword. Alright, so AFK grinding gun mastery is where it starts getting complicated, but it's still very much possible. To AFK grind gun mastery, you will need a macro, or if you're on mobile, a multi-point auto-clicker can also work. Then head over to the Chocolate Island, and come to this spot. I'd also recommend using Usopp's hat accessory, as it reduces gun cooldowns and increases gun damage. Now just go to this wall, and whenever this NPC spawns it'll immediately try attacking you, but will deal no damage. Now this is where the macro or multi-point auto-clicker comes in. You just macro you using the moves, and it'll start automatically doing it for you. So yeah, it's actually very simple, and if want to AFK farm mastery on Soul Guitar, there's a more efficient method to do it, but it can only be done with a macro. Go to where the Cookie Crafter NPCs are located, and go on top of this stone. Now position your camera angle like mine, so these NPCs are in your view. Now start the macro and shoot the NPCs. Once you've gathered all the NPCs, shoot this part of the rock, as the NPCs will be gathered there. I don't have stat points and a gun, but the NPCs will die after a couple of M1 hits. Just keep hitting for an extra 5 seconds even after they're dead, to ensure the macro doesn't have issues. A macro I would recommend using is Tiny Task, and for mobile just search auto-clicker on the App Store. And yeah, that's how you AFK farm mastery for guns. Alright, so this is the last section related to AFK mastery farming, and it's how to AFK farm mastery on fruits. Honestly, I manually grinded most of the fruits to 600 mastery, as fruits have much more abilities compared to other weapons, but just for you guys, I found AFK methods for every fruit that could AFK mastery. So let's begin. But before we start, make sure to equip the Chop accessory. It reduces Blox fruit cooldowns and increases damage. Alright, so the first fruit is Rocket. Head on over to the Forest Pirates and go into this tunnel thing. Now turn on Instinct Hockey and position your character behind this NPC, then set up a macro or multi-point auto-clicker and use your Z, X and C moves. Also make sure Shift Lock is enabled so your positioning won't get moved around, and yeah, that's how to AFK farm mastery on Rocket. Alright, the next fruit is Spin. Head over to the Tiki Outpost Island and come here. Stand here above these level 2525 NPCs, and use a macro / multi-point auto-clicker and just use the C move, don't use any other moves. Alright, the next fruit is Chop. This one is pretty simple as it's immune to sword attacks once you reach a certain level, similar to Logia effects. Just use a macro or multi-point auto-clicker to AFK using the Z and C move, slightly held. Don't use the X move as it'll move you. If you're above the level of 2321, The cake guards are the highest leveled NPCs that you have immunity to, and if you're below that level, well firstly IDKY you'd want to AFK grind chop mastery but just search for NPCs with swords. Now I'm not gonna cover how to AFK every single fruit as this video will get too long. But I've given you the 3 different locations that you can AFK. The rocket fruit location is compatible with basically every single fruit. The spin fruit location can be used for fruits that have range or explosive moves, like the Kitsune AC move. Now the chop fruit location was supposed to represent how to AFK grind with fruits that get immunity buffs, in other words, low gear fruits. But the chop fruit location isn't actually compatible with low gear fruit users as the NPCs have hockey, so instead come here to the ice cream chefs. It's very close to the chop location. And if you don't have immunity to these NPCs because your level isn't high enough, just find the highest leveled NPC that you have immunity to and do them instead. But now that you understand the concept of how to use a macro or multi-point auto-clicker, you can just find the best location you can AFK with your fruit. And if you want to AFK farm fruits, head over to the castle on the sea island. Must be level 1500 plus to do this AFK method. Now sadly this method is pretty limited, you can only do it with the love fruit. Now just use the F move so you can fly upwards, meaning the NPCs won't be able to hit you, and then use a macro or multi-point auto-clicker to AFK use the Z and X moves. And every time a castle raid happens, every 1 hour and 15 minutes, you'll be able to kill it, and get a random fruit. So if you AFK for 10 hours, you'll get 8 fruits, which is pretty good, and that's how you AFK fruits in Mastery. Alright, the next section is how to AFK farm money. This one is pretty simple so I'll make it short and simple too. There are 2 ways to farm money. The first method is using this quake method. Head over to the haunted castle and come to this location, near the reborn skeletons. Now just use a macro or multi-point auto-clicker to auto-use the quake V move. It doesn't have to be the awakened version, but it is preferred. This method got me 40,000 money after being AFK for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Also, you can do this method at any location, just find a location where you can hit lots of enemies but they can hit you. I just prefer this method as it gives you bones too. Now not many of you will want to eat a quake fruit just to AFK grind money, so the next method requires the Buddha fruit. Just head over to the reborn skeletons and come to this spot. Now just get an auto-clicker and voila you're done. If you're wondering which method is better, after my testing, method 1 got me more money than method 2. But not by a considerable amount. So if you want mastery on your fighting styles or sword, you can just do method 2, similar to method 1. You can also do this method wherever you want. I just prefer this method as it gives bones, and that's how you AFK grind money. Alright, so the final part is AFK grinding materials, but most of the materials in the game are easy to AFK. But just for the people who skip to the materials part, I'll explain for the 100th time at this point how to AFK the basic materials. Most of the material NPCs either don't have hockey, meaning low gear fruit users are immune to them, or their health is so low you can kill them fast with the Buddha range so they can hit you. Such as these sea soldiers from Mystic Droplets, you can easily AFK them as low gear fruit users are immune to them and can easily be killed with Buddha, so all you need is an auto-clicker and you're set. Which is why I'll only be mentioning material NPCs that are more complicated to AFK. Alright, the first material are the mini tusks. For this method you'll need to have the Buddha fruit, then just simply transform in front of this ship, get an auto-clicker, and position your screen in front of this NPC and you're done. The final material is Contra Coco. You'll also need the Buddha fruit and an auto-clicker. Just get an auto-clicker and come to this spot, and you're done. Alternatively you can also just stand on this stone and use the Quake V move. And yeah, that's how you AFK everything in Blox fruits. Anyway guys, that's the end of this video. If you found this video useful, please make sure to like and subscribe. Anyway, bye.